our next session, which is titled Swiss Highlights. The session will last about 45 minutes in total, and it will in fact showcase two important initiatives within Switzerland that highlight the innovative and collaborative approach that Switzerland is taking to build trust and further the adoption of digital technologies. So it's my great pleasure to have with us Nicolas Zahn from Swiss Digital Initiative and Livia Walpen from the Swiss Office of Communication with us today. They will both be sharing short presentations with you, and then we will open the discussion for a short Q&A. So I assume it's Nicolas that's starting first. So I would say, Nicolas, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ayisha, for having me here. Welcome everybody also from my side. I'm really looking forward to giving you a short overview into the work that we're doing at the Swiss Digital Initiative in advancing practice-oriented ethics in the digital age. First, very quickly, who are we? Where are we? What are we doing? We are a non-profit foundation based in Geneva. I'll come to why we are in Geneva in a bit. And our mission is to promote digital ethics and responsibility. We were originally created going back to a summit in 2019 that was organized by representatives from the private and the public sector, trying to advance digital transformation within Switzerland, but also positioning Switzerland globally as a hub for digital governance. And we were launched at the time with a very diverse board of supporters. And from the very beginning, it has been clear that we are a multi-stakeholder initiative. So we want to bring together representatives from academia, the private sector, the public sector, civil society. And this is also reflected in our board governance. As you can see, the different board members there bringing in their own perspectives. Our work is structured among three pillars. So one pillar is projects that deal with digital trust, projects that deal with ethics and artificial intelligence, and projects that deal with advancing digital responsibility in practice. We also do have some overarching activities, for example, being represented in international working groups such as the World Economic Forum's Group on Digital Trust or the OECD Civil Society Advisory Council. Why are we talking about these projects, and why are we really glad that as a Swiss initiative, as an initiative based in Switzerland, we can work on these issues? We started with the recognition that digital trust is eroding. So we have three trends that are accelerating across the world. We have a growing awareness of digital risks. We have an increased demand for more transparency and accountability, as well as increased control and regulation on the national and international level. Plus, we have a slowing adoption of digital services due to mistrust on the side of end customers. And if you combine all these factors, it means that if we do not address the question of digital trust, we are bound to miss out on the benefits that the digital transformation could actually yield for us. Which is why we propose to introduce a digital trust label. And over the last 2 years, since the start of the initiative up until now, till the beginning of this year, this idea has grown into a concrete product. So we now do have a label that is among the first worldwide that measures trustworthiness of digital services and basically certifies that a specific digital service goes beyond what's legally required, but instead fulfills 35 criteria that we have collected together with the work of renowned experts through different user studies, etc. And this label is really intended just as similar labels, for example, organic labels or nutritional value tables that you know as customers from other fields. Just the same for digital services. It is intended to increase transparency and empower end users to make informed decisions about the digital services they want to use. You can see this here. We think that this will only grow in importance as we have lots of digital services and use cases in various sectors. You see them listed on the bottom of the screen, where we have sensitive information, where we do have the potential for automated decision making, And we believe that addressing this question of digital trust head on, for example, with the digital trust label, will become really important for organizations that are offering digital services in the future. We also have projects that try to raise awareness on the ethical implications of advanced digital technologies such as artificial intelligence. And especially we believe that by collaborating with art, we can really raise the awareness for these abstract topics and the potential dangers, but also the opportunities that come from technological advancements. The example that I've listed here on this slide is a project that we've made in collaboration with the Art High School head in Geneva. I invite you to visit the website that's listed below to try it out for yourself. Basically, we use a facial recognition algorithm to derive certain characteristics and then show you targeted advertising for this, just to raise awareness and raise questions about which technologies that we use, where we trust them, etc. Lastly, we also work on advancing corporate digital responsibility. This is a relatively new field, and several studies have actually shown that adoption amongst companies is quite low. For a couple of decades, we've now talked about the so-called ESG goals, so environmental, social, and governance. And we believe that it's time to update this framework and also include digital responsibility. So what are the potential social and other consequences of providing digital services, using digital services? And with this project that we made in collaboration with IMD Business School based in Lausanne, we gathered information that provides a nice introduction to the field of corporate digital responsibility if you're completely new to this, and also based on interview with leading organization provides you with some examples and common challenges that they faced in implementing corporate digital responsibility. So this project is intended as a starting point to lower the barriers for organizations to get involved and engage with corporate digital responsibility. So that was really just a really short overview on the type of work that we do as an organization. We follow sort of a dual mandate. First, we have the type of projects that I just mentioned in collaboration with other institutions, be it academic partners, private or public partners. But we also want to help to position Geneva as a location for digital governance discussions. Actually, there's already a really nice cluster there, and we hope to be a fruitful addition to this growing ecosystem. And with that short intro, I'd like to hand it over to Livia.
Thank you. Actually, if I can just step in now,
sure.
I see that we have a little bit of time, and since we before Livia goes, I had a couple of questions, because I think just one thing which is clear. You mentioned in the beginning about the trust is eroding, and of course you've come up with something. Given that we've got audience which is joining us from different parts of the world, the question would be like what you have created in terms of the digital trust label. Is that something you are basically aiming to really just use the Swiss digital trust label here in Switzerland, or the idea is also to sort of have other countries potentially using something like that as well? What would be the vision there?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. We definitely feel that this is an issue and a solution that is not bound by national boundaries. So the digital trust label is very much intended to be used internationally, and not just limited to Switzerland.
Okay, well, I've got a few other questions as well, but let's have Livia in there already first, and then we can go ahead. And those of you who are joining us online, please make sure that as you hear the presentations, please post your questions so I can also use those. Livia, the floor is yours.
So hello, and thank you very much for the invitation. I'm really glad to be with you this afternoon virtually for the Swiss highlight section. And I also prepared a few slides. I guess Arvin should be able to share them. So if I could kind of ask Arvin Yes, perfect. And let me just also say that we are really glad that from the Swiss Federal Office of Communication side that we are able to support this year's AI Policy Summit, as we think it's really timely and an important initiative. So yeah, all the best to you, Ayisha, for this endeavor.
Thank you so much.
So already next slide, actually. Exactly. So Ayisha, you actually asked me to share some of our best practices from Switzerland with regards to AI, inclusive AI governance that is following the multi-stakeholder approach. So what I would like to do in the next couple of minutes is focusing on two initiatives that we are coordinating from Ofcom side, namely the so-called platform tripartite on AI, and also briefly the Swiss Internet Governance Forum. Next slide, please. But maybe just before, very briefly, to give you a little background on the general approach of Switzerland with regards to AI governance. I mean, we are a small but highly developed and networked country. So for us, it's really essential to actively shape the debate on the governance of AI. And that's also why we, as Switzerland, we are really involved in all the relevant bodies and processes also on an international level, namely the Council of Europe, OECD, ITU, UNESCO, and so forth. And there in these discussions, we try to contribute with our values and also expertise, and really based on the notion of like a free society with the typical Swiss participatory democratic decision-making and also rule of law. And this idea that we really strongly have in Switzerland of shared responsibilities between the different stakeholders. And what's particularly important for us in Switzerland is really that in the discussion about the governance of AI, that we ensure that fundamental values and norms, particularly human rights, are respected. And as I already said, really to ensure that all stakeholders are involved in the discussion, because we are convinced that it shouldn't be just the government deciding on how AI should be governed or regulated, but it really needs a collaborative approach and involving all the different stakeholders and their views and opinions. So next slide, please. So how do we do that in Switzerland regarding this inclusive and multi-stakeholder approach to AI governance? One example is the so-called platform tripartite. It was established already back in 2003 by Ofcom. And at the time, it was really used for the preparation of the UN World Summit on Information Society as a exchange platform for the preparation of this UN summit. And then later on, also for the implementation of its outcome. And since then, this platform really has been serving as a national multi-stakeholder platform for exchanging information on really a broad range of topics, from information society to the internet, digital governance, and also more recently, artificial intelligence. And I think what's important is really, or also interesting, is that it's open to really all parties from the public and private sector, civil society, research, and the internet community. So it's really truly interdisciplinary. And I think that's really important when it comes to AI governance. And I'm really also glad that both Ayisha from RegHorizon and also Nicolas Zahn from the Swiss Digital Initiative, you're among our members. We are currently with the 160 members signed up in our mailing list. And I think that's really a Yes, sorry. Then we just meet regularly once or twice a year for all those that are interested. And in addition, we really exchange also our views and viewpoints via electronic means, namely our mailing list. So next slide, please. And now also just briefly, particularly about AI. So when the platform was established back in 2003, the topic of AI was not yet that hot, let's say, but it became more and more important. And we decided to use this already established platform also to more and more focus on the increasingly important topic of AI. So really, since 2020 now, we've been using the platform to organize also several meetings, specifically on AI topics that are suggested also by our members. So it's not just we from Ofcom that we are saying we want to discuss this and that aspect of AI, but it really also comes from the members themselves. And then what's also interesting is that we have, like, within the platform, we have a so-called administrative committee consisting of people working for the federal administration. And we use this to really coordinate Swiss positions on AI on an international level. And just to give you kind of two concrete examples of our activities of the platform, maybe you know that in 2021, the Swiss government has adopted AI guidelines for the federal administration. And this was really like before we had a process within the platform tripartite to really discuss the draft of these guidelines and consult the members, so that it wasn't just the government alone to come up with these guidelines, but really in a collaborative process with the platform. So that's one concrete example where it was really useful to get the feedback of the platform's members. And then the second, just to mention that it's upcoming. Maybe you're aware that within the Council of Europe, there is a process recently started to negotiate a convention on AI. And actually, it's my boss, Ambassador Thomas Schneider, who will join the AI Policy Summit also on Wednesday. So he will be with you and probably also talk about this topic. He's chairing this committee within the Council of Europe. And what we, now coming back to the national level in Switzerland, what we really want to do with the platform is discussing and consulting this draft, the zero draft of the convention with its members, once it's publicly available. At the moment, it's not yet, but that will come soon, so that we really take up the inputs of the members of the platform in Switzerland on their views on the zero draft and take this with us to Strasbourg, to the Council of Europe, because we really are convinced that this negotiation process of this convention should be as transparent and inclusive and multi-stakeholder as possible. And therefore, we use the platform for this goal. So I don't know how many Swiss people are actually here, but just for them, that for those that are interested, if you want to join the mailing list, you're most happy to do so. Just contact me via this address that I provided on the slides, and you can gladly participate in the platform. Next slide, please. I just briefly also wanted to mention another initiative that also serves for inclusive and multi-stakeholder governance on AI, namely the Swiss Internet Governance Forum. Maybe some of you know the global UN process, the UN Internet Governance Forum, and the Swiss IGF is really like the national spin of this global process. It's a yearly event in Switzerland. And here again, it's open to all interested parties. It's free of charge. And what's interesting and important is that the program or the agenda is defined in a bottom-up process. So it's, again, not the government or like top-down decision, we want to discuss this and that, but it's the whole community in Switzerland that can make suggestions. And it's inclusive. It's really for all the stakeholders, and they are treated as equal discussion partners. And then we, like the outcomes of the Swiss IGF, we keep them in the so-called messages from Bern that really summarizes the discussions, and then we hand them over to parliamentarians and also to the regional and global IGF structures, so that it really, these discussions should influence the policy making in the end. That's also the goal. And again, it's a multi-stakeholder initiative that it's really consisting of volunteers from politics, business science, and civil society. So it's not Ofcom leading, but we are kind of serving as a patron, but it's really the internet community in Switzerland that is leading this. Next slide. Yeah, and just to make the link to AI, actually, of course, AI has been always in the recent years a really hot discussion topic, because it's really something that is that people in Switzerland are concerned with. So just this year in June, we had a really interesting plenary on regulation of artificial intelligence. What is Switzerland doing? You see a picture of this plenary session on the slides. And then if you're interested in the outcomes, you can also look up the messages on our website. And yeah, just to mention that we were already planning the next IGF next year, and we'll soon launch the so-called call for issues. And there I just invite everybody that is interested to really suggest topics with relevance to AI, so that we can make sure that we will discuss AI also at the next upcoming Swiss IGF. But I'm sure it will be on the agenda again. So if you want to follow the process, you can also sign up for the mailing list at the website igf.swiss. Next slide, please. Yeah, so those were actually the two initiatives that we are coordinating from Ofcom's side that hopefully are kind of best practices for inclusive and multi-stakeholder governance on AI. And I'm looking forward to your feedback or questions or other ideas or initiatives. I'm curious to hear what's going on your side. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Livia, and thank you both of you. And I'm so happy that we have you here, because it just goes to prove the point. I mean, for me, these really are incredible initiatives, and as Livia, the ones you have mentioned, and I think for me, and that's very clear, what makes them a real success and is the fact that they're open to all parties. And you also mentioned about the agenda coming from bottom up, and I believe that that's something that really adds credibility to whatever it is that you in fact do or deliver. But the one question that comes while, I mean, I'm just waiting for more questions in the chat. Currently, we don't have many, so I think I'm going to just go on and post some myself. One of them that I would like to again, going to the practicality of things, assuming that we have people who are listening to us from the other parts of the world, and who would think, well, okay, if I wanted to set something like that, is Livia lost feed? I don't see her very much.
Yeah, she just texted me. She has a technical issue.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then I'll go. I'll wait for her to come back. I'm going to come to you. So I have a question for you. So when we are looking at basically what you presented. So the Swiss, basically the digital trust label. If you go to the process of how this was developed, right? I mean, what would you say was some of the biggest challenges that you had to overcome in order to get to where you are today? And, specifically in light of the fact that now many people are trying to come up with these kind of, certification on algorithms. And how does a consumer know that this is something, this one is better than that one, right? Yeah. And I think it probably goes to the core of who you have in maybe you presented, but I'll let you sort of highlight that and share that with the audience.
Thank you very much, Ayisha. Something must have happened around 2018, 2019, because when we monitored the landscape and looked at other initiatives, we counted around 50 to 60 initiatives worldwide that are going in a similar direction. Most of them have been abandoned by now, or have changed direction, or only focus on one aspect of this complex concept, trust. But I guess one of the main challenges is having clarity about what kind of information the end users need. So the label was intended from the very beginning to empower the decision-making process of end customers that are faced with the choice, for example, in an app store or on different web pages, which digital service they want to use. So we really wanted to model it according to other labels. For example, for energy consumption, where you have the labeling on a new fridge or a new television. And so one challenge was figuring out what type of information, how dense does the information need to be, how can we present it in a way that actually facilitates decision-making of end users, and what kind of information do they need so that they're not overwhelmed. That was one of the challenges, and we tried to address this through user studies and prototyping. So we had different kinds of the label, as you can see it now on our website, and figured out that the way that it's currently structured provides a good balance between being simple and plain, but also offering enough information so that I can understand what is actually being measured. A second challenge is clearly squaring business needs of companies that provide digital services and expert views on what criteria you should follow, because in a perfect world, you would go into lots of detail and you would look at many different criterias, and we still do. But in order for the label to actually find use cases, we also needed to take into account the perspective of the companies that actually offer the digital service and go through the audit. So think about what criteria can actually be operationalized, how can they be operationalized, and how can we balance sort of the effort that is needed to go through the audit with a high level of credibility for the label.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose just one reflection would be that in order to have sort of credibility with those that are using your label, I suppose you have to sort of show that those that are in your board or the ones that are behind are also sort of, they are the right people there. So I suppose it's also choosing the right people so that you can ensure that you can then build trust with whoever is saying, oh, well, hang on a minute, these people have looked at it. So there is is there an element of that?
Absolutely. So specifically for the label, we've actually set up additional governance structures. We have 2 additional bodies that I didn't show in detail, but you can find that information on our website and the website for the Digital Trust label. We have the Label Expert Committee, which is a group of experts from the various stakeholder groups that we've recruited over the summer. And they are actually continuously developing the criteria catalog, so checking that it still keeps up with the pace of technological developments and also regulatory changes. Do we need to include additional criteria? Do we need to change the existing criteria? But they are not involved at all in a specific audit. So there's a clear separation of powers there. They're really focused on providing credible expert input into how the label works. And then we have a second governance body, the Label Certification Committee, that provides an independent check of the audit reports that we get from our audit partners.
Great. So the takeaway is this sort of division of the lines between the two is very, very key as well, right? In order to build the trust. And I suppose that within those, the committees you have, they're also kind of multi-stakeholders. So you've got people who are maybe from the government, some that are coming from academia and some others. So that could be some of the things to think about, I'm assuming, going forward for somebody else who was going to be, working on that in another country, I assume.
Absolutely.
Unless they take the Swiss Digital Initiative, unless they take your product, of course. Now, I wonder if Livia is back. Livia, can you tell us whether you're back? So we have a question for you or not really? And if not, looks like you're in the hot seat, Nicolas. I can give you another one, and I mean we can go to break pretty soon as well. You mentioned working with IMD, right?
Yes.
So what exactly are you doing? And IMD, for those who don't know, is sort of an executive business management school. So what exactly are you doing with them? And I see that then Livia is probably back. So last question to her after.
Very good, thanks. So we've worked together with them actually on the issue of digital trusts beforehand, when they were also addressing this issue at a conference in St. Gallen, and we co-wrote a little paper there. But more specifically for this project that I presented as part of my presentation, we worked together with researchers at their Institute of Digital Business that specialize in corporate digital responsibility. And they really helped us with their know-how of the field, providing the theoretical backdrop, providing the structured interview questions for the research with the companies.
Start my laptop, and now it's just not working. So I joined via my mobile phone, but at least you can hear me now.
We can hear you. Okay, so very, very quickly, Livia, we were just wondering, you have, in terms of when you look at the tripartite or you look at the Swiss IGF, I mean, if somebody from another country was looking at it and saying, well, this is a great initiative and maybe we should have something like that in our country as well, what does it entail? Like, how many people? Do you have a big secretariat, to have that together, or is it just a small team? How does that work in practicality if somebody wants to set it up?
Yeah, sure. I can gladly share our experience. It's basically really a small team, and it doesn't need that many resources. When it comes to the platform tripartite, it's basically me at Ofcom that is administrating the mailing list and inviting for events or coordinating the information exchange. But then also when it comes to the content, I'm of course really glad to be able to count on all the members that they can provide inputs. So it's really, in the end, a multi-stakeholder effort, but it's just kind of me from Ofcom side coordinating. And then with regards to the Swiss IGF, there we are a bigger team of like a core team consisting of 6-7 people that also from different sectors. That is meeting regularly and putting forward also like coordinating the agenda and so forth. But what's interesting is really that it's basically volunteers that are doing this, and I think that's also the beauty of it, that it's different people that are interested in the issue. And I mean, they were, when it comes to the Swiss IGF, they were inspired, of course, by the global process. And then just thought, let's do that in Switzerland. And then we came together, people from the government side, Ofcom, but also people from private sector and civil society and research. And that's how it all came about. But in the end, I think it's the will that is needed and a good kind of spirit, but not that many resources. Of course, also particularly the Swiss IGF, there we from Ofcom side, we also finance quite a bit, but again, it's not just Ofcom. We have different partners that are providing financial help. So it's really a truly multi-stakeholder effort. Yeah.
Perfect. That's fantastic. Nicolas, you had something to say, some last words, something that you'd like to share?
No. I just thought, if we wouldn't be able to resolve the technical issue with Livia, I could have jumped in on the IGF Secretariat question, but now that's all been resolved wonderfully.
Just because you're part of that multi-stakeholder group as well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And we are really glad to have him.
But nothing to add from my side.
Well, great. Well, thank you both. I think that's pretty much what we have time for today. We will be, for those of you who are joining, if you want to reach out, I see some people asking for specific emails. I believe, Livia, you could be reached via Ofcom as well, right?
Of course, gladly. Yes, I will just type my email also again in the chat if I manage with myself.
That would be wonderful. Nicolas, yourself as well. And I'm really grateful for both of you to have been here. And we will have actually another session on Swiss Highlights 2, which was going to take place on our hybrid day. And that will be on the October 13th. But in the meanwhile, thanks for your participation. Hope you can join us for some of the other sessions. We're going to take a short break now.